Rocking Entrepreneur, Episode 1.
I had friends where I could couch surf, and I had made them promise me that if I can't buy myself food, they will buy me noodles.
Hello, fellow rock stars. I'm so excited to have Anuj Choudhary here today. Anuj, are you ready to rock?
Yes!
Love it. So, Anuj is an expert in vessel upgrade projects, heavy lift design, calculation, and consultation for rigging and lifting plan of FPSO modules and jack-up rig structures. He also handles FEM analysis for deck strength calculation and lashing design for sea transportation and site supervision. If you didn't understand what the hell he really does, fellow rockstars, do not worry. That's what we are here with him to find out what he does and how did he get here. In a nutshell, Anuj is the founder and CEO of Dimension Consultants, an engineering and project management consulting for the marine and oil and natural gas industry in the Pacific Southeast Asia region. Before that, he founded Rigwise, which supplements the software side of Dimension. Anuj and I actually go way long back to the IIT times where we were both part of the Asia Pacific Entrepreneurship Society when we used to screen other people's business ideas for the Genesis competition. Those were really some great times. It gives me great pleasure. Anuj, welcome to the show. And I've given listeners a brief introduction, so take your time and describe a bit more about yourself personally and expand upon your business.
Hi Tushar, thanks for inviting, and I'll try my best to explain whatever I can, basically. Briefly, I started the business about 3 years ago, and the reason for starting was quite simple actually. I was frustrated with jobs and certain problems that come with jobs. I didn't actually get any good jobs because I graduated in 2009, if you might remember. So it became a bit of a tug and push trying to get into just the next position in the next company. I changed 3 jobs in 3 years, and after that I said I had enough, let's give it a try. Some of my old clients came and offered me a little bit of work, and I started it off. I called my dad at that point of time and basically asked him, like, I'm going to do this stupid thing of quitting the job and trying to start a business. And he said, well, there are only 2 times you can really be stupid in life. One is before you have had kids, or once they have grown up and became capable. So I guess I fit the criteria, got his blessing, and gave it a go. And that's how it all started, basically. Everything, I wrote business plans, I made plans, I met people, investors. Nothing worked. The only thing that worked was being flexible. I kept changing myself, changing the strategy. And the only strategy that was there was to adapt to whatever comes your way. It's been working fine so far. The first 2 years were difficult. I did get business, but faced some problems with hiring people and stuff, because obviously nobody wants to work for you when you're younger than them, poorer than them, and don't have much comfort to offer, basically. So anyway, after first couple of years when things were looking good, I eventually went back to basics, called up old friends, old colleagues, and eventually some of them were more than happy to throw the ropes and join in. So, and then slowly it became Dimension. And we are here now. I'm in Japan right now working on a project, building a world's biggest geotechnical drilling rig that will be basically sampling the entire Japanese ocean shelf for minerals and gas hydrates for energy. So we design and build ships and the equipment that go and do the job. And what makes us different is that we are not a consulting company. For a typical ship design consulting company gives designs and advice, but we actually come on site and finish the job and then move on.
Great story. I love your story. I want to start from the time where you said getting frustrated about the jobs and take it at one step at a time. Can you take us back to those times when you said frustrated with the job and you decided, okay, screw this, I'm going to do something on my own, I'm going to start it. Take our audience at that moment and describe like what were the thoughts that were going through your mind and how did you personally decide that this is what I really want to do, and how did you go about doing it?
I'll start backwards. I always wanted to build big stuff from childhood. So being a naval architect from IIT sort of kind of cleared that dream. So I was very happy when I got my first job in Keppel Fells, which is like the biggest shipyard in whole of Asia, actually. And I was part of their deep-water technology group. The salaries were shit low, but 2009, we were more than happy to just have a job and be at a good place where you can learn something. But when I joined there, it was all politics, bureaucracy, and work was like the least of anybody's priorities. Nobody really wanted to share anything or teach anything. But the good thing was nobody wanted to do anything either. So if you put your hand up, you'd get plenty to do. I'll probably kill you with the amount of work, but you learned something. So I learned a lot in Keppel in 1 year. After 1 year, in my first year, I worked on things like drill ships, which are like $700 million a piece, and I was designing the entire 20,000 ton of things structurally. And at the end of first year, they gave me a $50 raise. So I said, "Well, I'm quitting." They said, "You won't get a job." I called up some my intern friends, and they got me a job in next one day. So I moved on. Moved on to a smaller company where I thought it'd be much better. Instead of 10,000 people, it was a 60 people company. After 10 days, everybody knew everybody. So it was a lot easier to get along, more young people. It was run by ex IIT Kharagpur alumni. So it felt right at home, except for the fact that it was the most horribly run company I've ever worked for. You could see after a few months that you're actually not going to go anywhere in life. You're just going to be stuck at this same position for the rest of your life, because your immediate person next to you is your boss, and he has no intention of expanding or doing anything creative or even interested in developing you as an employee, as your sort of consultant to make his company better. It was more like a factory of selling drawings. So I decided I wanted to be more on the field instead of being just stuck in an office. So I left the second job after 8 months. At the third job, I joined small heavy lift consultancy, only 10 people. So I was reducing in size. I thought the smaller the company, the more opportunities you have for overall development, because you'll know about financials, management, you'll be meeting clients directly. In big companies, meeting client is like a lifetime achievement award. But in small companies, you do it every day. So I moved on to the next company. I was on field. We were lifting things like few thousand ton FPSO modules, and we are moving stuff which were 10,000 tons and 20,000 tons. We were joining ships, we were breaking ships. So it was all exciting stuff. And I learned a lot. Since I was on field, I actually met a lot of people, learned about the real world instead of the engineer's calculator world, and made a lot of friends and made a lot of connections. And that's where I met my first business partner, and we started Rigwise. And basically, he saw my potential and he has ideas, but no way of executing them. And well, I had no ideas because I haven't seen enough industry. And by then, I knew that all my ideas were stupid. We don't have enough experience. So he had the experience, he had the ideas, and he wanted to build software. And as Tushar may know, I was from sort of web operations kind of background from IIT. So I had some background in them. I thought, well, I can crack on. So we went and sort of came up with ideas about RFID based asset management system for ships. And within 3 months, I had a product ready. I had been to Hong Kong, I had been to Singapore, Australia. We had given demonstrations, and everybody was happy. Everybody liked the product and said, go on. But nobody would buy it. So no investors were willing to fund it. They said, well, give me a customer first. So it became a bit of a catch-22. And after 6 months, when we finally did the proper financial calculations, we realized that we'll be needing $3 or $4 billion, and nobody's going to give us that. So that just died there. But what I did learn from that is that people do respond to you. People are willing to listen to you as long as you have something to offer. I decided to go back to my basics. I'm an engineer. There was a lot of work out there. I was running out of cash. My partner moved on and got a job. He was a very experienced fellow. So I started Dimension and started consulting. I started reaching back to my old clients, and they came back to me.
Great. I love the story where you say that you keep on moving slowly and slowly to like smaller and smaller companies. You keep on getting more experience as you go along, and you keep on building that network of people that eventually help you out. I feel it's like so important to have that network of people that can mentor you, that could guide you, and that could be around you when you need them the most. Would you comment a little bit more about the kind of people that a successful entrepreneur needs to surround themselves with?
Brutally honest, you need positive people. In workplaces in real world, you meet two kind of people. One who say, "Oh, you're too young. Oh, you need so much experience, so you don't have the skills." And there are the positive people who identify things that you're good at and things that you're not good at. And you need more of those positive people to sort of tell you what you're good at, and then ask you to believe in yourself and at least go and try. And then comment. If you fail, comment back. You're like, fine, you failed. Let's figure out why, and then go give it another try, basically.
Okay, so moving on to the next question, I'll give you a hypothetical situation. I am someone who knows little bit about the subject, maybe not that much, maybe enough. How do I verify that I know good enough amount of information or knowledge to go out there and become a consultant? And once I do think that, okay, this is something I want to do, how do I go about being a consultant?
If you want to get into consulting, the simplest is to just start with small things. Like when I started consulting, although I had done a lot of big structural work for my previous employer, Keppel, obviously nobody is going to give me that important job as a 24-year-old consultant. But they would give you things like design a bracket that hangs on the wall and pay you $200 for it. And you can sort of grow from there. What I did realize that is once you have worked for someone, they are always willing to trust you more if you keep performing. So instead of looking for a lot of client and every day sending emails to hundreds of people, go back to the people who have already given you work. Probably they have more of it. And they already trust you and you already have a relationship going. Then they will introduce you to their friends and so on.
Great. I think the biggest takeaway message is just find a customer and find its pain. Go ask them what they really need the most help with, and then see if it lies in within your area domain and if you can address that issue. And if you can, I think it becomes like a challenge you cannot take off your mind off, right?
Yes, and every time you're doing something and you're working with somebody, your competence grows basically. So essentially you grow with time as long as you keep working.
Anuj, what would you say is the toughest part of starting a consulting business like yours?
In fact, a friend summed it up for me 2 years ago, three lines. First difficulty is actually going and finding any work because obviously you're young and nobody trusts you. And as a consultant, they want to see experience and you have none. So, how do they trust you? They will just have to like you, like your attitude. Let's say you did find a customer. Second thing is to be able to deliver, to be able to finish the job. Obviously, you don't have enough experience. You might end up taking a job where you're way out of your depth and there's nobody around to actually guide you. And let's just say you even manage to finish the job. The third and the most difficult one, especially in the developing part of the world, is getting paid for your work. So these are the three biggest problems. You have to figure out how to get the job, how to finish the job, and how to get paid for it. There are three unrelated problems. If you draw a Venn diagram, they will never intersect.
Okay, so how did you address this issue?
You stumble, you lose. So first, I told you how I got the job. So I can say I was quite lucky. I had worked with clients on my previous jobs who trusted my skills, who knew that, okay, I worked for 3 years and I have certain set of skills which they can utilize. And they figured what they wanted to do with me. I was just available. I literally just made myself available. And they told me, go and do this. I think you can do that. So I went along basically. The second thing was go and finish the job, which was basically not so difficult in the beginning because they were only giving me stuff they knew I could do. And so essentially, takeaway being take jobs which you think you can finish, or you straight away at least figure out what you need to know to finish the jobs, basically. Third thing, getting paid for it. Sadly, depends on luck. If a client trusts you, trust the client. We had to take a leap of faith, have to be ready for that blow. My first job I worked for, I got paid. The second job I worked for, I never got paid for until now. The third one I got paid for. The fourth one I got paid for. The fifth one was a major loss. I spent 2 months and I got nothing out of it.
How do you prepare for a situation like that?
When you are young, what do you need to do? You need a place to sleep, food to eat. Correct?
Yeah.
So I had the backing that I had friends where I could couch surf, and I had made them promise me that if I can't buy myself food, they will buy me noodles.
I love that attitude. Figure out what's going to be the worst situation that you can possibly get into, and I think once you figure that out, what's the worst that can happen to you, and you figure out how you can ward that off. It becomes really kind of a cakewalk. It becomes so much more clear. It becomes easy to do suddenly for some reason. That brings me to my next question. You mentioned about the degrees. Do you think that for someone to reach the position where you are today, is it necessary to be an IIT pass out?
Nope. Completely. In fact, nobody knows what IIT means in my line, honestly. It's absolutely means nothing. The only thing when you do have degrees, there's some place you can get a job. So it just makes a fallback option a little easier. But what that really means is employability. If you have any form of employability, even if that means if you make good coffee and you can get a barista job at drop of a hat, then you have a backup.
Words of wisdom. Love that. So, Anuj, tell me more about how you're generating revenue currently.
I followed a model of maximizing revenue from my existing clients. That's from Seth Godin. I don't remember the book's name, but there was a line which said that your current customers are 100 times more valuable than your future customers. So focus on them first instead of going crazy on marketing and trying to acquire new ones. So I sort of applied it, and roughly we make about 2 million a year nowadays in revenues, from 1 million last year and half the year before that, and about 160 on the first year I started.
That's a great growth story. I also like to sum up your message saying that you focus on the current what you have in hand right now. So a lot of people I know get distracted when they keep on coming up with these ideas, right? For example, when I got this idea of the podcast, I also got idea of about a bunch of other things, and I started working on the podcast, and it's like, oh, this looks fancy as well. So I'm sure those moments have been in your life too. How do you get over that situation, or how do you avoid being distracted from all these factors that are around you and that seems so just so tempting to go after?
So basically, the biggest way to keep yourself focused is success. If you feel successful in doing something, that will basically make sure that you keep doing it, isn't it? Now, obviously, we are all bright people and we have six ideas every time we visit a toilet, basically. But you have to really evaluate it. Simply think, how long will it take for you to actually convert an idea into something that will pay your bills? And if you are smart enough, you'll realize probably ages. So keep focusing on the one that's working out for you, or if you don't have anything that's working out for you, just pick one. Just set a deadline, basically. Like I said, a 6 months deadline. It worked out for me, so I continued. Well, I got lucky. If it doesn't work in 6 months, really just go to your plan B, or choose something new to work on, or get feedback from people who understand what you're doing, even if you don't understand it.
Love your feedback. I think the biggest takeaway for the audience over here is that figure out how much time it takes. And I think to a certain extent, it takes some bit of experience doing this exercise a couple of times, having this list of ideas that you can do, and then picking one idea and then just analyzing, recording all your thoughts and your time process, going through one particular idea. When did you actually came up with the idea? And from that point of time, how long did it take to achieve that idea? And once you have done that for a couple of times, I think you get a better understanding, grasp of, if you come up with six more ideas at certain point of time, how much any of those ideas can take. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about like a precious failure moment. And we all know that a journey of a successful entrepreneur is full of failures, and that has so much valuable learnings to offer. So Anuj, take our audience to a moment in time that you would consider your worst entrepreneurial moment and tell us that story.
My worst entrepreneurial movement was actually trying to launch the RFID based asset management system for oil and gas industry. And it sounded like perfect gold mine. Okay, we understand marine. I can build a software. Here's a man who knows the problem. I have a solution. We'll all be millionaires in no time. I spent close to 1 year building a product, marketing it. It was a disaster because after pitching to a lot of people, I couldn't even get $100,000 for a product that we were valuing at $30 million. And I was so naive. I was so sure that it'll be a success that I never saw the great lights that I was seeing along the way until much later.
So also you must have had a lot of aha moments where you thought, oh, this is great, it worked out as I expected it to. So take our fellow rock stars into that moment of time where you had an incredible aha moment and tell us the story leading up to that.
After 2 years, I was on a project and they needed something built very quickly. And with time, I have developed some connections in Singapore with people who fabricate things quickly and cheaply. So I said, "Fine, give it to me. I'll go and give it a try." And I was very scared of giving somebody a contract where I'm supposed to pay them. Scary because I'm only used to getting paid or not having work, and I was used to it. But I was not used to going and paying to somebody. But anyway, I took this job, and it actually turned out pretty nice, and we turned in about 40-50% margins on it. Just like that, I would have normally busted my ass for 6 months to make the same amount of money. And when that happened, people have started applying for jobs. I mean, they started sending emails, getting friends recommendations, and that was the biggest aha moment. Finally, people are actually considering us as real company. Strangers are considering me not a freelancer, but a business which they would like to work for. We are now about a 10 people company, and we have 3 investors who want to invest in us.
Amazing. Okay, so this is the last round, Anuj. It's going to be the rapid fire round where I ask a bunch of questions that are supposed to be one-liner answers. So let's just jump right into it. So what was holding you back from becoming an entrepreneur?
Fear of losing, fear of failure.
What's the best advice you have ever received?
The dad's one, where you can either take risks before you have kids or once your kids have grown up big. That was really life changing.
Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your personal success.
I try to be positive, and when I'm negative, I talk to friends and become positive again. Don't let your failures drag you down, basically.
Can you share an internet application like Google Documents or something else that helps you be more efficient at the work you do?
Mavenlink. Check it out. It will organize you right from the get go.
So we have an audience question from Amit Garg in Singapore, which you might know. He asks, why Singapore?
I ended up in Singapore, honestly. After college, got a job there, so I ended up there. But starting a business there was so simple that I just stayed there.
If there was one book that you would recommend...
Plus, of course, my girlfriend was there and she kept me.
That's the most important answer. So if there is one book that you would recommend to fellow rock stars, which would that be and why?
Getting Things Done.
I love that book. Okay, so that's the end of our lightning round, and that brings to the end of our journey almost. Anuj, I've really enjoyed listening to your journey, and the stories you shared are really amazingly inspiring, and I'm sure there are a bunch of people who are listening to this podcast right now must be really feeling inspired and motivated. Anuj, before we say goodbye, I would like to ask what's one piece of parting guidance that you would like to share with our fellow rock stars and the best way to get in touch with you?
You can just email me, find me on Facebook. Email is anuj@dimension.sg. Facebook shouldn't be very hard to find. The last piece of advice that I would give to anybody out there is, if you're trying to start a business or trying to build a product, try not to be different from others and try to find your USPs or things like that, but try to make a difference. Your service or your product should make a difference in somebody's life, business. It should change a situation. That's what will make you successful.
Love it. So, fellow rock stars, you can find links to everything of value that we have mentioned in today's episode by going to www.repodcast.com. That's repodcast.com. Clicking on the podcast tab and finding Anuj in the archives, or just enter Anuj in the search bar and his show notes will pop right up. Well, thanks a lot, Anuj, for taking your valuable time out. Wish you all the best with your future endeavors, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Pleasure was all mine. Always be there for you whenever you need me.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.